So week 2 is upon us, and coming off the ad-lib effort of week 1, I don't think it ended too badly. In the last video, we covered both the draft and all of Lin mode. I didn't have a strategy going into any of these, but now this is where it starts to get real. We are starting Hector mode, and this means that now it's time to get serious. At this point in the series, there isn't really much I can do or fight for. I'm going to have Hector, Oswin, and Bartray, and that's pretty much it until I get sane. As a result, I don't have the movement to contest for any loot, nor do I have any utility units that can help with it. I'm also not a key player in the recruitment of any early game units, and so I find myself with zero leverage. I don't have any money, and I'm not in a good spot, so I started thinking long term, and there are 3 main pivot points that I need to take care of. And you might be thinking, wait, why is there an entire long chapter about the turn order before the first stream of Hector mode even begins? Well, I'll tell you, but you're gonna have to hear this out since there was a lot of planning and thinking involved in this. The first order of duty is making sure that I have a healthy roster of units that can compete for kills, levels, and objectives while also staying alive. A strong core of Hector, Sane, Raven, and Lucius would cover magic and melee, weapon triangle variety, movement, and healing. Oswin will be nice in the early game, but I think he'll fall behind in the late game due to his low speed and movement, so putting him in the core might not be a great idea. Either way, he'll be great to tank and feed my units kills since he won't be one-rounding things early on. With these tools, I think I'd have a pretty strong early to mid-game team that can remain competitive throughout. Coming directly off that first point of usable strong units, we get to the logical second step, which is having the adequate promotion items. Looking at my team, I need to secure the following: a Knight's Crest, potentially 2, a Hero Crest, and a Guiding Ring. The first Knight Crest is in Chapter 17, and that will be a race to the top of the map. It's in a chest, and I don't have any thieves, so this may potentially be an issue. And then the one after that is a long ways away in Chapter 22, so I kinda need that now. There's a Hero Crest in the same chapter, with the same issue of no way to open those chests, and the Guiding Ring is the easiest to get, as Legault steals one on his way out of Chapter 20. There are quite a few of them in the game though, so I'm not too worried about Guiding Ring or even Hero Crest availability. But the Knight's Crest, there's only 3 of them in Hector normal mode, and the last one shows up really late and you have to steal it. I'll have to devise a plan on how I'm going to get them in the first place, but that'll come later. The last point I need to figure out is finances. I'm not exaggerating when I say this, but my team is going to be living in poverty unless I make some drastic moves, and so this is where I really started my research. Chapter 11's Red Gem goes to Speedy. Chapter 12's Secret Book goes to Speedy. Chapter 13X's 5k gold most likely goes to Speedy, and the gem that Lin starts with in Chapter 16 is under Speedy's control. The earliest it seems like I'll be able to get money is from the shared red gem in Chapter 17, and that requires saving all 3 green units. Or is it? Upon deeper investigation, I found that the gem that Lin shows up with on Chapter 16 is dependent on the total funds rank from Lin mode. Since we all planned on playing Lin mode together, we'll all contribute to the total funds rank, I felt like that gem should be split, and it'll generate a little bit of cash for me to at least supply 2 to 3 weapons for my team, which I'll definitely need at that point. And so I proposed the idea to the group, and after a little bit of push and pull, Speedy begrudgingly agreed to split the gem. This gives me a little breathing room, but at this point it's not really looking too good, so I had to dig even deeper. Chapter 18 has a red gem that drops, and some shops on the boat. Since the other bozos should be preoccupied on the left-hand side with the Guiding Ring, I'll grab the gem. Chapter 19 has an Orion's Bolt I can sell if I get that. I'll need it. 19X has a goddess icon, but without a flyer, there's no way I can get it before the others do. And Chapter 20 has a blue gem. But all of these pale in comparison to 2 key chapters. Chapter 22 has a chest with 10,000 gold in it, and Chapter 23 has an ocean seal worth 25,000 gold if you sell it. If I can get one, or even both of those, I'll never need to fight for gold for the rest of the run. And I bet you're wondering, hey Link, aren't these chapters at least 2 to 3 streams away? Why is this all being planned so far in advance? Well, my entire playthrough is going to come down to how restricted or blessed I am by the turn order. For example, That ocean seal is in the desert, and if a thief steps in the area where the item is, they're guaranteed to get it. Because of the way the turn order is laid out, in 2 out of 3 times, Speedy will go before me, and he has Matthew. That means that if we started the desert chapter with anyone but me, I'm 100% losing out on that ocean seal. So I started counting. At this point, I have 2 options. Since Speedy went first in the last chapter of Lin mode, it makes sense that the turn order would move to me to start off Hector mode. But if I did that, I'd be going last on chapter 17, second on both chapters 20 and 23, and first on chapter 22. But if I let Speedy go first, I can actually go first on chapter 17, 20, and 23, and I go second on 22, which isn't ideal, but I can take the hit there. Of course, there's one small problem with all this planning. And when I say small, I mean massive. And that's Kishuna. All my counting in the previous minute or so was dependent on us including chapter 19XX in the playthrough, which is notoriously hard to get on your own, let alone in a group of 3 people trying their hardest not to cooperate. If we can get chapter 19XX, then me letting Speedy go first will give me a massive amount of leverage, but if we don't, it backfires immensely. And if you actually go and watch the streams, which I highly recommend by the way, you'll actually see me try and convince him a few times to save state abuse so we can get 19XX for the content. Sorry Speedy, but that was all BS. I just needed my turn order counting to work out in my favor. In the end, I decided to let Speedy go first, because it means I go first on chapter 17, and that helps me try and guarantee my early Knight's Crest. I'd rather have the guarantee over a non-guaranteed turn order later down the line anyways. And you know what they say, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, and so away we went to the stream. So now that we understand our massive dilemma of just me deciding who I'm going to let go first, it's time for the first stream of Hector's story. And this might as well have had its name changed to Marcus's story. If there's one thing I didn't expect, it's that RNG would bless Marcus and curse Hector. Marcus is notorious for being very strong in FE7. He starts off as a level 1 pre-promote paladin with very solid bases, and with a few stats in the right areas, he becomes a powerful juggernaut in the early and mid game, while still being quite viable in the late game, especially on normal mode. This stream in and of itself was quite uneventful. There were no casualties and no hiccups in general. Everything went pretty much exactly as I expected, and it was a free-for-all to try and see who could level up their units the fastest and eat up the most kills. Unfortunately, Marcus is one of those characters who, if left to his own devices, will leech every last drop of EXP in the early game. And that's exactly what Speedy did. I still managed to get a decent amount of EXP on Hector because he's very good himself, but by the end of the stream he was level 12, with 11 strength. RNG was not kind to him and I was suffering. All of his other growths were fairly good and his defense was well above average, but the lack of strength was very disturbing. And to add insult to injury, Marcus had also leveled up a few times, hogging a bunch of the boss kills, and gained a couple points in speed. Speed is probably the most important stat in FE7, since once you're over a certain threshold, you start doubling most units in the game, and Marcus was about to hit that very quickly, very early on in the game. And as if that wasn't enough, Speedy also had a major monopoly over a lot of the early game recruitable units, making it much easier for him to clean up and fulfill objectives for points. This wasn't too good of a start for me, but I made it out alive and I managed to keep pace points-wise. We stopped at the end of chapter 16, and the points totals at the end here were 103 for Speedy, 89 for myself, and 53 for Jay. There was only a 9-point difference between Speedy and I at the end of Lin mode, and he has extended his lead to 14 after this stream. Things aren't looking great, and Marcus is really starting to dominate the objectives and EXP game. But I have Sane now, so I can somewhat keep pace. And next up is chapter 17. If you were paying attention at the start of this video, this is where our Night Crest is, and where the most important part of our plans begin. Once Speedy and Jay see the next episode of this series, they'll never talk to me again, because this is where the fun and mind games really start. See you all next week. Peace.